Good morning and welcome. Before we get started, I'm just going to invite one of the APTO representatives, Kerry, to come on up and just touch base with you briefly about the APTO. So welcome, Kerry.
Thank you so much, Lisa. We appreciate any time to get in front of parents and just remind you that Algonquin does have a parent-teacher organization. My name is Kerry Probst. I have 3 boys here at the school, freshmen, sophomore. I'm a huge fan of these guidance presentations because I feel like I learn so much every time I come. Just a reminder that we are here at the school and we rely on parents. It is a parent organization, and we know that everyone's in a different place. We rely on parents' donations and sponsorships to raise our funds, which we use to do things like an ice cream social in the spring for all of the students. We do teacher appreciation just like the elementary and middle schools do. So we provide an end-of-year lunch as well as a breakfast in the spring for the teachers. We're just opening up a supply closet for teachers where we're going to be providing wish list items for them. We provide scholarships for seniors. We also do the junior post-prom party, which is a huge event to keep our juniors safe after prom. So all of this requires either volunteers or donations. So I would encourage you to, there's a flyer out next to the paperwork that you picked up as you came in that has our contact information. And I just encourage you to think of a way that you can get involved. Right now we have in-school volunteers. Every day there's an opportunity to come in and help monitor the hallways. It's not a glorious job, but what you're doing is you are relieving a teacher of that duty so that they can spend their time prepping for classes. I try to come in about once a week. I bring something with me to do. I just sit, I work on my work, and watch as kids come and go. And it's a way for me to be a fly on the wall in the high school and get a sense for what's happening, and I love it. And I know that the teachers appreciate it. So if there's a way that you can volunteer or donate, we'd appreciate that you do so. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kerry. And on behalf of the guidance department, we're very appreciative of the support of the APTO. They help us with our annual college fair, as well as guest speakers that we have coming in. So we're very appreciative of the support from the APTO. So good morning and welcome. My name is Lisa Connery. I'm the Director of Guidance here at Algonquin. I'm so glad that all of you could join us as we begin, the career exploration journey with you and your student. And, we will guide you through the next couple years and to graduation and post-secondary planning. So before we start the presentation, I always think it's nice if you, to introduce the counselors so that you can put a face with a name for the counselor who'll be working with your student. So I'll start over here on the left-hand side with this Jason Lessard. Next to him is Dave Breglio, Linda Hutchins, Andrea Hodgkin, Kate Mulcahy, and Becca Haberman. Okay. And unfortunately, Pam Mackey is absent from school today, but she's also one of the counselors here with our department. So this morning, we're going to primarily focus on the work that we're doing with sophomores around career exploration. We've just begun the process. We've been going into the classroom and doing a presentation with the students. And anytime we go in and do presentations with the students, we also offer parent presentations. We really want to try to align the communication between students and parents as we kind of guide you through the post-secondary process. So our focus right now is primarily on a couple things. We have course selection, which the counselors will discuss more in depth today. And course selection is going to start this Monday. And it will run for 2 weeks, and then, we'll finalize that process, and we'll begin the process of working on the master schedule and student schedules. Now, of course, it's a long process, and so schedules aren't released until mid-August, but we will start the process now, and teachers have begun, doing recommendations for students in IPASS. We're also talking with them, introducing them to Naviance, and some of you might have older students, so you might be familiar with Naviance, and some of you might be brand new, but that is our college and career software program that we utilize with our students. Right now, we're introducing them to the career assessments, and personality profile, kind of starting to help them to get a sense of themselves, their strengths, their blind spots, where their interests lie, how their personality ties into their career, potential careers and majors, just to get them to begin to think about possible opportunities. Now, we all know that, at the ripe age of 15, 16, 17 years old, it's impossible, to totally have your path, your pathway completely figured out. It is a long journey, but we want them to begin to, think about possibilities and make connections to their interests and their personality type. So we've been doing those career assessments in the workshops today. We're also going to touch base briefly on standardized testing, all right? Just to kind of give you a timeline around what to expect with standardized testing. And again, I think the biggest thing is, just to understand that there is a timeline, there's nothing, you don't need to rush through that. And, if you just kind of follow our lead, then your student will be in fantastic shape come senior year. Of course, next year, we will start the post-secondary planning search process, where we start working with students individually to help identify potential programs, majors, schools, whatever it might be that your student wishes to pursue, and guide them through the process of, visiting the schools, identifying, the requirements to apply to given programs or colleges. And then in senior year, we'll show them how to execute the actual application process. So we will guide you through everything, okay? So if you just, if for some reason you did not receive an email through Naviance, please let us know. Reach out to your student's guidance counselor, because we'll double check your email. So we will communicate all kinds of information, to students and parents through Naviance. And you'll see as you progress into junior and senior year, those communications will increase significantly as we move through the process towards graduation. So at this point, I think I'm going to turn it over to Andrea Hotchkin. She's going to touch base briefly on just our GPA and exemptions.
All right, good morning. So before we do go into the course selection, I am going to talk about academics and GPA. Everybody should have grabbed a workbook on your way in. I am going to refer to something on page 2, so if you do want to turn to that, that'd be great. So high schools across the country, they all have their own way of calculating GPA. Some schools have a 10-point scale, some have a 7-point scale. I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin. We used a 4-point scale, which was unweighted, meaning that regardless of what level I took, so if I took an honors class, if I took a CP class, an A was worth the same across the board, okay? We do something different here. We use a weighted GPA on a 5-point system. So on page 2, you're gonna see the scale that we use. And you can see that we have the 3 levels. We have college prep, we have honors, as well as advanced placement classes. The weighting basically just takes into account the difficulty nature of each course, okay? So you can see an A+ is the highest grade, a CP, that would be a 4, honors would be a 4.5, and in an AP class, that A+ would be equivalent to a 5, okay? So there is a little strange formula, the way this is calculated. You would actually be able to do that in the program of studies online. We will show you how to access all that information, but that is how it is calculated. GPA is calculated based on full year grades. With the current sophomores, we will have a GPA for them either at the end of this year or going into the fall of junior year, and that GPA will be based on final grades from freshman and sophomore year. So students and parents often ask, how is GPA used? We used to actually report class rank. We no longer do that. We started eliminating class rank with the class of 2019, and that was actually an effort following along with a trend with most of the highest achieving high schools in Massachusetts don't rank. So we moved away from that. But GPA is something used for college admissions, so it is something that we report to colleges. Here it's used to determine eligibility for honor roll, as well as some of the honor societies like National Honor Society. Various departments have their own honor societies like English, science, business, art, music. So all of those groups have minimum GPA requirements. Outside of school, as I mentioned, college admissions, they're going to look at GPA. Scholarships look at grade point average, as well as insurance, like good student discount. Students can get discounts on their car insurance for maintaining good grades. Before we go into the course selection, there is something I want to talk about. It's an exemption policy. So exemptions, that's at the bottom of page 2, I believe. There's the policies listed there. But we have a policy, basically, students can exempt one non-required course from their GPA each semester. So that could be, and that's an elective, so something not required as part of our graduation requirement. So one each semester or one full year elective. And what this has done is really we did it to encourage students to take electives without concern for how that might impact their GPA. I see this come into play mostly with honor students who have been doing very well, and let's say they're afraid that taking a college prep class could mathematically bring down their GPA, which it potentially could. When you look at that A plus in an honors is a 4.5, whereas that A plus in CP is an A. Yeah, it could move down a fraction of a point, even by getting a very high grade in that college prep class. So let's say you have a student who's very interested in art. They come here to Algonquin, they want to pursue the arts. To take most of our art classes, you have to take Art 1, which is a college prep class. By exempting a course, a college prep class, this student can take that without worrying about, will that impact my GPA? I think something to keep in mind is when you do exempt a class from the GPA, it simply doesn't calculate into our GPA. Colleges will look at your grade. That grade still exists. It doesn't go away. Colleges don't care if you exempt a course or not. They may not even know that. Most colleges, when they get a high school transcript, they'll actually look at the transcript and recalculate GPA using their own system. So they may take a grade that's on the transcript that was exempt and recalculate that. So we did let students know that's an important thing. I know every few years I might have a student taking Art 1. I call them down mid-year. I'm like, what's going on? You have a D. And they're like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's exempt. Well, it very much matters. That grade is real. It just doesn't count for us, okay? We did explain the policy to the students, and that is to exempt a course, you have to do that before starting the course. So there's an online form that we'll show you in a bit that the students would fill out during course selection. It's a Google form. They would just put their ID number, their name, and then they would indicate which course they want to exempt. We will record those and then go back and change that later once schedules are built. But a student cannot start a course and then come back and say, you know what, I actually want to exempt it now, and vice versa. You can't exempt the course and come back and say, you know what, I actually want that to count. It has to be done prior to starting an actual course. So that's just the exemption policy and how that plays into the GPA. I'm going to move this now to Kate, and she's going to go over the course selection process.
All right, so on page 3 of your workbook, you can review the graduation requirements for Algonquin, and students may want to use this as a reference as they select their classes to make sure they are on track for graduation. There are a few important things to consider when going through the course selection process. We've listed them in your workbook, but although world language is not an Algonquin graduation requirement, most colleges do require a minimum of 2 consecutive years of a foreign language, if not 3 or 4, with some of the more competitive colleges. So that's something students want to consider. Also, while Algonquin only requires 3 years of math, Massachusetts state colleges and universities require 4 years of math in order to be admissible to the schools there. As juniors next year, your students are essentially required to enroll in the core academics in order to complete Algonquin's requirements, but colleges do prefer to see students enrolled in core academics all 4 years of high school, so this is something they'll need to look into as they pick their senior year classes the following year. It's important that students also follow their passions, whether it's music, art, business, whatever it might be. Colleges want to see that students are passionate about something, so we always encourage students to explore their interests by signing up for various electives, whether it's early childhood education, video production, marketing, because these electives sometimes shape what students want to pursue at the college level. So it's always nice to explore those electives since we have so many offered to students. So Algonquin's course selection begins on Monday, March 2nd. There's a few things I want to point out as we approach the beginning of this process. So if you go to Algonquin's website and then click Academics, then Guidance, it will bring you to our page. From here, you can click Course Selection on the left-hand side. So students can click on the iStudent course selection instructions. This will open a document that gives step-by-step instructions on how to complete the online course selection process. It's the same process as last year. And then as you can see right below, there's the iParent course selection instructions. So you as parents are also required to approve of your students' course selections for next year through your own iPass account. Often we have to email parents and they say, oh yeah, I went through with my student on their iPass account, but you actually have to log into your own account and approve it in your account. So to get to iPass, you can click on the Families tab and then scroll down to iPass. So if you don't have an iPass account yet, you must first request access, which can be done by clicking on the link on the iPass login, which you would see eventually. Don't worry about that. So just log in on your own. So back to the guidance website. So teachers will recommend students for next year's courses through iPass. So students will be able to see these recommendations on Monday when course selection opens. So this is actually just a screenshot of what it would look like. So you can see the student was recommended for Junior English Honors, Algebra 2 CP, Physics CP. So your students will be able to see their course recommendations from their teachers on this page. So we also ask that students include 3 to 4 elective courses in their iPass selections as well. Teachers in English, Science, Math, and World Language will recommend students for their elective courses in their departments. So it's important that students speak with their current teachers about electives that they're interested in for next year, in addition to the core requirement that they have to take. Students can select electives from the fine and performing arts, social studies, computer science, and the applied arts and technology departments themselves. So this is a screenshot of how students can search. They can click on the magnifying glass, or in the box right next to it on the left, they can enter the 4-digit course code there. So students should also include alternative electives in the iPass in case their chosen elective is unavailable or if there's a conflict within their schedule. So it's important that students approve all of the courses they wish to enroll in through iPass by checking the appropriate box, and that you approve the course as well. Again, these instructions can be found in the link on the website. So course selections must be completed in iPass by Sunday, March 15th, and any questions for teachers or counselors must be addressed by Friday, March 13th. So a few other things to point out on the website. It's the 2020 to 2021 program of studies. So students and you can use this as a reference if you have any questions about what a course entails, if there's a prerequisite, anything that might be required for the course, and just a general course description. In the program of studies, you can also find the graduation requirements and a lot of other important information. Right below that is a 4-year course of study plan, so students can use this to map out the courses they wish to take next year as a junior and even into their senior year, so they can see how, courses and electives that they want to take may be able to fit into their schedule. This week in workshops with students, we actually had them fill this sheet out just to use as a frame of reference next week when course selection opens, so they can kind of map out how some electives might fit into their 4-year plan. So from there, we also provide a reference sheet for students. So if they click on junior year, they're able to view the classes that are available to them, what department it's under. We encourage students to actually print this out and help them guide them through this course selection process. And you can also see next to every course, there's a 4-digit number. So in iPass, this is just a really easy way to type in your electives rather than using the magnifying glass, searching through all the courses. They can just type in the 4-number code right here. So great reference. So from here, if we go back to the website, we have important factors to consider. Andrea Hodgkin went over the course exemption, but there's the course exemption form that she mentioned. So it's just a Google Doc, so you can open this, and students must complete this if they do wish to exempt a course from their GPA. So lastly, we always encourage students to listen to the advice of their teachers, but if a student strongly disagrees with their teacher's recommendation, they can start the override process. So this process is outlined on page 4 in your workbook. To start, the parent must initiate a conversation with the teacher regarding the recommendation via email by Thursday, March 12th. Once an email has been sent, the student may then pick an override contract up from their current teacher and complete it. These contracts must be picked up by the end of the school day on Friday, March 13th. It must be completed, signed, and returned to the department chair by Monday, March 16th at 1:50 p.m., and late forms will not be accepted. The department chair will then respond to the student via their school email, whether the override was approved or denied by Monday, March 23rd. Any questions regarding this process must be brought to the department chair by Monday, March 30th. The department chair has the final decision about the outcome of the request, and if a student previously overrode in a subject area that resulted in a level change, they are not eligible to override future courses in that subject area. So for example, this year, if a student overrode into honors chemistry, but then changed levels back to CP, they cannot override into physics honors next year. So as students start this course selection process for junior year, please encourage them to make sure that they are enrolling in a balanced course schedule and they're selecting the appropriate course level. The conversation should be more about what's appropriate for me rather than what looks good for colleges or what are my friends taking. It's important for students to challenge themselves, but challenge themselves appropriately. So next up is Becca, and she will be talking about testing.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Sweet. I don't like to stand here because then you can't see me because it's higher than I am. Question for you guys. How many of you, this is your eldest child or this is your first child who might be going to college, who might be doing a college? Oh, looky there. Okay. How many of you are already feeling stressed thinking about what your kid's going to do? How are they going to get into college? What's happening? All right. Here's the other thing I want you guys to think about a little bit. How many of you, if you can remember a couple of years back when you were in high school, did you really, really think so hard about what you're going to do, what college you're going to go to, that you had to study 50 million hours a day for one standardized test? Anybody? Okay, one person. Sweet. How'd it work out for you? Okay. Did you have fun? Yeah? Even while you were studying for standardized tests? Sure. Okay. So that is not the typical. I'm going to talk to you about the evil empires, otherwise known as College Board, which runs the SATs or ACTs. Back in my day, you guys were mostly in diapers back then, but back in my day, SATs were only taken on the East Coast. Nobody had even heard of a test called the ACT, except if you were in California and SATs were used there. Primarily because College Board is headquartered in New Jersey. ACTs are headquartered in Iowa, so they marketed all to central and midwestern states. Now, fast forward a few years, and guess what? They figured out business plans, and they can market to everybody. So, there are two types of tests. There's the SAT and the ACT. Colleges will take either an SAT or an ACT. There is no college that will only take one versus the other. And there are many, many, and many more coming of colleges that are actually going test optional. So for those of you like this young gentleman over here who never got out, met any girls or anything, are you his wife? Okay. Just checking. Were you studying with him while he, no, okay. But one of the things is that there are more and more schools going test optional because one test does not define who you are, except for my friend over here. There is this other fallacy that your children need to study for hours to take these standardized tests. That is also a fallacy because they're actually not studying for the test. What they are doing is practicing test-taking techniques to figure out how to answer the questions that might be worded differently than what they're used to seeing. How many of you were or are athletes, like play tennis, golf, baseball, something like that? Okay, maybe in high school you did something. I bet you didn't just go out and pick up a ball and start hitting it and all of a sudden get a championship without practicing. SATs are kind of like that, okay? The more you practice, you might get better at it. If you were me, it really wouldn't have mattered. I am not a test taker. I can't sit for that long. My brain doesn't function like that. However, guess what? I got into college. Even with, I think I maybe broke 400 on the math, probably not. But I still went to college. There are so many other things for your children to be doing other than spending time practicing for one test. They should practice, and the best practice will be for them in October of their junior year. They take the PSAT. Even if they took the PSAT as sophomores, in October, they get to take it again, practice. Those test scores go nowhere except through College Board's marketing, where they will send certain information to colleges. So how many of your kids took a PSAT already? Okay. So you might already be getting some mail, some wonderful, glossy, beautiful things that you're throwing in the recycle bin. That's called marketing, same as when you buy a car or something like that. The PSAT, a student should not study for. If they want to practice and that's what they want to spend their time doing, okay. But really, I'd rather have them spending their time doing their coursework, making sure that they are actually doing their homework, reading, writing, doing their math. Next year, we will be talking in length more about standardized testing, but just to give you guys kind of an idea of the timeline, if your child is advanced in math and maybe taking pre-calc, or maybe they're like one of our fine young men who, you know, are really, really advanced in math and taking higher level math, if they're taking pre-calc or something, they could very well be ready for an SAT or an ACT in March. I've had some students take it a little bit earlier because they want to be sure that they get everything in. That's, again, up to you. There's also this fallacy that you've got to take these things 50 million times. Not really. You're just giving College Board more money for a nonprofit organization. I don't know how they're nonprofit because they will squeeze every penny out of you. Typically, we suggest that our students take the PSAT in October and then take one SAT and one ACT by June of their junior year. The reason why we like kids to take one of each is the SAT's a little bit longer than the ACT, and the questions are somewhat shorter in how you have to read them, but they're more abstract. So they, if your student is somebody who really likes doing puzzles and stuff like that, the SAT might work better. The ACTs, they're longer reading passages, but they tend to look more like what students see in their classroom tests. The ACT has a different section. They also have a science section as part of it. So if a student takes one of each, then we know which test fits them better, which then we can say, all right, in the fall of your senior year, over the summer between your junior and senior year, you can do more practice on whichever test fits you best and take it in July for the ACT, or September or October for the ACT, or August, October, or November for the SAT. You don't have to take 5 of these. I'd rather have them do a little bit more practice and get comfortable with it. And for those students who are not test takers, it's okay. We still want them to take a test, because what if a college that they're interested in wants it? At least they have it in their back pocket. But there are more and more schools going against standardized testing. Schools like Holy Cross, Assumption, the Bates, the Bowdens, just to name a few. You can go onto a website called Fair Test, and you will see hundreds of schools that do not require any testing. Back when you guys were probably in high school, there was also a test called the SAT-2s, or the SAT subject test. Those are 1-hour exams that colleges were asking for to see, say you were thinking about applying to like MIT, and they might ask for, if you're not taking the ACT, or even if you are, they might ask for a math and a science subject test. Subject tests are really going somewhat away. There's only about 10, I think, schools that require them. Recommend them. Yeah, I think there's only like 1 school that requires it now. In the US, yeah. And so again, do not spend your money on subject tests right now. We'll talk to your students about that. So testing, how many of you know about Varsity Blues? Anybody know Lori Laughlin? She's my best friend. She'll probably go into jail, right? So these parents wanted to spend a lot of money to make sure that their kids got into the best college, but it might not have even been the best college for their kids. And Felicity Huffman got to spend 15 days in jail because she thought that she was helping her kid. And really, that's not the way to help your kids. And I know you guys don't want to do that, but marketing and our society puts so much stress on testing that if you can really talk with your student and really see what they want to do and try and reduce the stress, that is the best way to go by through the standardized testing thing. Okay, that's why they never let me talk about standardized testing, because I hate it so much. The other thing that I did want to show you is in guidance, we have wonderful little things, but one of the best resources that we have for your students is something called the CRC, otherwise known as the Career Resource Center. There's a lot of college info in there, but we also get job information, and Ms. Cummings, who's in charge of the CRC, she posts, anytime that we get jobs in, she posts it here on the website. So a lot of your sophomores, I was actually meeting with one of my sophomores the other day and asking them what they were doing over the summer. Bye, Mrs. Conley, have fun teaching. So I was meeting with the student, I said, well, what are you gonna do over the summer? As we were drawing out their 4-year plan, and she said, well, my dad wants me to study for the SATs. I said, no, guess what? You like art. Just found out that the Danforth Art Museum is looking for volunteers, and they have a training program. So I said, bring this home, give this to your dad, do that instead of studying for the SATs. But here you can see all the different jobs, and jobs, volunteering. I mean, one of the best things that you could do for your kids, make them go work. Go work at a Burger King. It's amazing what you can find out about yourself when you are flipping burgers. That is really, you can spend a lot of money going to a lot of summer programs, and that's great too for that kind of student, but getting out there and having to work and deal with a variety of different people. If you think back to when you were younger, and you think back maybe your first job, one of my first jobs was working at a movie theater. It was great. I could see every single movie for free. I ended up with a lot of acne because I was eating a lot of popcorn that had all the oil on it. But again, think about what's really important. Those kids who babysit, that shows responsibility. That's the important thing. Plus, have fun. All right, who's next? Oh, I didn't use my notes.
Do you want them back? All right. So if everyone could turn to page 8 in their workbooks, I'm going to be discussing a software program called Naviance that we recently shared with your students. And they can access the program, and you can actually access the program as well through our website. And surprise, surprise, it's under Academics Guidance, and then it's Naviance. So you can click right there, and then you'll be able to log in. So I'll discuss that a little bit further in a minute on how you'll be able to log in. But it's really just it's a college readiness program that students will be working with until graduation. So this year, we're not focused on that aspect so much. We're focused on the self-discovery part of the program. So in our workshops from this week, all the students completed something called the Myers-Briggs type indicator using Naviance. So Naviance has all these amazing tools which can help students understand their strengths, their blind spots, and their interests beyond just applying to college, which they'll use later. They can use this information to find and discover careers that are considered to be a good match. So Naviance allows them to research specific careers to find out what required skills, tasks, even potential earnings in those careers, and it shows those careers and matches them to related college majors. So then, of course, we can use these majors and potential majors during junior year and help them to search for schools to go visit junior year, and then senior year, they can actually use this program to apply to some schools. We send their transcripts using Naviance. So one thing that's interesting to note, just so you know, it also for next year, they'll be able to see previous data from Algonquin alumni, and the data is used to help students explore specific college admission stats to help them find schools that are good academic fit. So they can see who from Algonquin has been accepted to schools X, Y, and Z, and we'll go through that much more next year. And again, lastly, during senior year, they'll use the program to assist with the college application process. But today we're going to take just a quick snapshot of all the capabilities that Naviance has to offer. And this week, the sophomore students activated their accounts. What we did was we introduced them to the home page, which we're going to go into now. So we're going to log in. The home page is important because we update the home page frequently. So right away, there's always a message in the top left, and they can click on Read More. But we update this with pertinent information for them to look at. And so if they're ever wondering, oh, where should I be right now with the process, they can simply log on to Naviance, and it's going to tell them right there, this is what you should be working on, this is what you should be doing during the summer, this is what you should be doing in the fall. So it updates. Also, another important part that we introduced is the messages at the top left. So we do send emails, which they do receive, but if you go on Naviance, it's nice and organized. All the messages are here, and they can simply look at all the previous messages and kind of look at a timeline of everything that's happened. So we showed them those two things. Another big one that we showed them was the About Me tab under My Account. We asked they can review all their information, and just so you know, if you look at the bottom right, this is where we will eventually post their GPA. So at the end of the years, you'll see their updated GPA from their final grades from their transcript. At the top, it says Parents and Guardians, so this is a big one. So we asked them to go in and double check to make sure that your email address is correct, because what we will do is we will send you an email with an access code to register for Naviance. So that way they can log in with their account, and now you'll be able to log in with your account. It's a little bit different. When they're on their account, they can take assessments, they can add schools, they can like kind of save schools and do some data things. You simply are an observer. So you can go in and look at their assessments, look at the schools they've added, talk to them about it, but you can't actually edit things. So if you want to really go through and add schools together, I would recommend logging in using their account with them. So the two of you could sit down, or the three of you could sit down and do that together. So make sure that they did add the correct email address for you. So make sure you do get that email. An important thing to note is if you already have a Naviance account, so if they have an older sibling or someone that has an account, you want to email your guidance counselor, because what we'll do is we'll actually link your account. So that way, if there's multiple children, we can link the accounts together, and when you log in, it will say which child do you want to view, and then you can pick the student that you want to look at. So from there, what we had students do was go to the About Me, the My Assessments, and we had them take the Do What You Are assessment, which is the Myers-Briggs type indicator. So we can actually turn to page 10, or 9, sorry, I think it's the next page, we cut a page out. So the students also answered a little questionnaire using this, and it's asking which psychological preferences is, how they see the world around them, and how they make decisions. So after they answer all these questions, we ask them to answer the questions from their gut. It's simply scenarios. It's like, Bob went to do X event, and Jim did event Z. Which one do you feel like you're closer to? And then you pick one or the other. We say just go with your gut and don't overthink it. When they finish, it comes up with a personality type that kind of tells them a little bit about who they are, and it lets them recognize their strengths and blind spots. So the first letter indicates whether they are an introvert or an extrovert. Now, it's important to stress there's no right or wrong personality types. All of them are great. They all have strengths. They all have blind spots. It's who you are. Just because you're an E doesn't mean that you have a little bit of I in you. So it's kind of a sliding scale as well. What it really does is let you know a little bit more about yourself. So for instance, like an extrovert might draw their energy from groups and work well with teams, where an introvert might, after a long, hard day, they might need to go spend some time alone, maybe drawing or listening to music, but that's how they recharge. They tend to be great listeners and often reflect a little bit more than extroverts. So there's strengths to both. The second letter refers to sensing or intuition types. So sensing types tend to be great observers. For example, we post this picture of an apple and ask students to discuss. So the sensing types are always like, all right, it's green, there's a light brown spot on it, there's a stem on it, it's shiny, it's round, it's very factual and evident. Where the intuition types are like, oh, they see the apple and it's a bit more abstract. They're thinking, oh, it reminds me of an iPad, or it reminds me of apple pie, or that time, oh, that great vacation we took and we went apple picking. So it brings up those type of thoughts. So it's not quite as concrete. And the third is feeling or thinking type. So feelers tend to be more emotional and make decisions off of emotion, where thinkers tend to be a little bit more logical and concrete. And then the last indicator is judger or perceiver, and judgers tend to stick with plans and follow structure. Perceivers tend to be a little bit more go with the flow and spontaneous. And if you go on vacation with someone, I think the best example is if you go on vacation and someone has an itinerary where you're going to do X, Y, Z at this time, and then you're going to go here and that, that person is most likely a judger. And a perceiver can kind of put on a backpack and travel around the world and go with the flow. So it's two different types. Again, there's no right or wrong, and I think they're both strengths. And often if we work on teams, we'll want our teammate to be the opposite type, because they're going to pull some of those other types of personalities that are a strength for us. So they did all this work. They spent like 20 minutes or 30 minutes in filling this out and taking this assessment, and they kind of look at it quickly. I encourage you to sit down with them and go through the View Full report. It's literally 5 minutes of reading, if that. But there's a lot of great information on there, and I've taken this assessment probably 3 or 4 times in my life, between high school, between college, between like 10 years ago and recently. It's always the same type, which kind of astonishes me. It doesn't change, so it's useful to know this information going forward in your life. So if you look at it, I mean, it tells you your preferred learning styles, negotiating styles. It tells you like career preferences or career satisfiers and college satisfiers. So it gives you a lot of insight what to look for, like kind of like what would fit well for a job for you in the future. Like what type of learner are you? Like when you go in the classroom, like how do you learn best? And it's important to know those things about you. And I just think it's useful going forward. So I would definitely sit down and spend the time to go through those things. If we go back, one piece it does, and I'm going to be totally honest with everybody in the room, there's the C-related careers. We'll click on this. The feedback I get from a lot of students is that this data, this part is not extremely accurate. So it's giving them careers that might be suitable for their personality type, but there's a lot of careers and it can be a little overwhelming. Ms. Hutchins is going to go over the career interest profiler, which gives careers based off specific tasks they like to do, and those tend to be a lot more accurate. So I'll review some of this now, but just keep in mind there's 2 elements to the career piece. So this is useful to look at, but it's not as detailed and I think is maybe as accurate as the others. But you can see they're very interested in a few careers right at the top. You can favorite a career simply like we did. We click on that, and now that will add it to our favorite list. And as you scroll down, you can see all these different careers. And then what happened was students started to panic because they're like, I don't see the career that I want to do. Like, I've been thinking about this and it didn't pop up. What does that mean? That's okay. This is just a snapshot. So if they don't see their career, what they can do is they can actually go in Careers Home, and they can simply type in a career. So we could type in engineer, for example. And now it's going to give you a whole list of careers that involve engineering. And we could simply find the one we're looking for, civil engineers. That's what we wanted to do. And now we can favorite that career. And when we do so, we go back and we can actually find all the careers that we saved under colleges. Careers, sorry. Careers I'm thinking about. And now it has all the different careers nice and organized where we save them. So the Do What You Are really gives career choices based off interest levels, like I said, that students indicated. The other one that Ms. Hutchins is going to go is a little bit more specific. Again, I think Naviance is an amazing tool, and this is a great opportunity to sit down. We just did it and kind of start the process in using this tool. We, again, tie the career choices. We're doing this at a specific time, course selection. So we're doing this for a reason right now, because now, if they're doing these indicators, all these different interests are coming up. Hey, I've never thought about business. Oh, I've never thought about, woodworking or construction. Well, we have a wood tech class here that you can try. We have a ton of business classes you can try. So look at those interests that you have, and then look at all the electives that we have. Maybe there's something that we can match up to see if that's something you might want to pursue in the future. That's why we time all of this right now. So now Ms. Hutchins is going to go through, and she's going to cover the careers a little bit more in depth.
Okay, good morning. I am going to talk about the Career Interest Profiler. And this is a tool that is going to match a student's interests, or any of our interests really, with work experiences and careers. So this assessment is 180 questions. Don't get thrown by the number. It's very quick. Students can do it in 15, 20 minutes. An example of a question would be, do you like to write poetry? And the student's going to click on like or dislike. They're going to go through all 180 of these questions, picking what they're said, like what their gut is telling them. Don't think too much about it. Just go with your first instinct. And then they're going to be able to get a preference code. And this preference code is going to be matched with careers. So the preference code is based on John Holland's 6 personality types. The first type is social. Social could be someone who's a helper, teacher, nurse, someone that wants to help or educate someone else. The next type is conventional. I always forget that one, conventional. And this is someone who likes organization. They like to have routines, they like it to be structured, they like it to be ordered. The next one is artistic. These are creative people, and they probably like less structure than the conventional. The next area is enterprising. Enterprising is probably like a business-related field. It's someone who likes to be strategic, someone who likes to be a leader, someone who likes to work on a project. The next area is investigating. Investigators are those that are thinkers, analytical. This would be, an example would be an engineer, a scientist, researcher. And the sixth area is realist. A realist is someone who is practical. They like working with their hands. This would be where a lot of the trades would fit in. So basically, they're going to take these questions, they're going to get their code, their preference code, and then we're going to match this preference code up with careers. The point of John Holland's personality theory is that when you take and pick a career that matches your personality, you find that you are more satisfied in your career and more successful. And why do we encourage all of the students to take this career interest profiler? If you ask a group of people in our workshops, a couple of them know exactly what they want to do. They've known what they wanted to do, and that is great. But the majority of the students, they have no idea what they want to do. And this is a way to help them, if they take advantage of this tool, to really narrow in on some interests and some careers that will help them guide their future career paths, starting with planning out their course selection for the next 2 years, to thinking about majors, having those majors think about colleges that have those majors, and it's really being drawn from their interests and not necessarily what's the best college that I can get into that's the most competitive. So we really want them to take the time this year to really think about themselves. I have 2 sons. I was lucky. My first son can tell you exactly what he wants to do. He wants to be a lawyer. He knows he wants to be a federal prosecutor. He is so tuned in on what he wants to do. I'm like amazed at what he's doing. My second son is probably the normal person. He has no idea what he wants to do. He's a junior. He can tell me one thing. He's like, Mom, I do not want to sit at a desk for 8 hours every day. I'm like, great. We're going to go from there and look at some other interests that you have. So as your student, and you're talking about their future, this is a good tool that we really encourage you to use to help them figure out some of their interests. Now, along with the tool that I'm going to show you in advance in a minute, there's also great information about the career. So I want to make sure that you know how to access this in Naviance. So again, starting on the home page, we're going to go up to the About Me tab. We're going to scroll down to My Assessments, and we're going to go to the Career Interest Profiler. From here, we're going to kind of talk a little bit about Cristobal. She's our made-up student. And as you can see, she has high preference in the social and the conventional. So I have quickly gone over this with you, but it's going to be more in-depth in here. Students can look at their own profile. So if you can scroll down to the bottom, you're going to be able to view their matching careers. Now I'm going to give you a little caveat before I talk about this section. The careers are in zones, going from needing little or no education down to extensive education. So I was in the hallway yesterday, true story. There were 4 students, and they were talking about the guidance workshops. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how exciting. They're talking about our workshops. And then one student goes, that assessment was stupid. It told me that I should be a grocery store clerk. And I'm thinking to myself, zone 1, scroll down, scroll down. So just to let you know, if you even look at Cristobal, one of her preferred occupations is a locker room attendant. Last year, I had someone say, Mrs. Hutchins, this tells me I should be a ditch digger. So again, there's 950 occupations within this. Just, tell your students, let's scroll down a little bit and see what else might be there. So, we're going to scroll down right now to registered nurse. And there are wealth of information about every career. The first overview tab is going to give you a little bit of indication about how your Holland code matches up with this career. It's also going to give you some related occupations that you can explore too. The next code is going to be the knowledge areas and skills. So they're going to give you the 5 most important skills and knowledge areas that your student can look at to see if they can be successful in that career. The next tab is my favorite. It's the typical assignments and common activities that you can do in this career. So getting ready for the workshops this week and this presentation, I went in and said, okay, I want to really see if this is really accurate. And I looked up guidance counselor, and I was amazed at how accurate and really how many details it goes into that we actually do. And then the last tab is the student's favorite. That is wages. They go right to that one. They want to know how much are they going to make, and so we show them the national and the state average for that. Just a couple other things I want to cover with you. When you scroll back down to related occupations, so we're going to just select athletic trainer. And again, you can go through that career too. But one thing I want to point out is the career clusters. And when you scroll down, you're going to see health sciences. And this is where it's going to give you some really good information. The first thing it's going to talk to you about is the job outlook. So obviously we all are very concerned about jobs. We want to make sure there's a good outlook for that profession. This is going to give you that information right from the Department of Labor. The other thing that is going to happen on this page is they are going to give you the educational plan of studies. They're going to show you what you can take in high school and what you're going to have to take in college. So as we're talking about course selection, this is going to help you and your student guide what electives they could take or what classes they may want to map out to make sure they are ready and prepared for college. So anyways, I just want to say we talked about 2 of the career assessments that are on Naviance. There is so much information in the career section. When I ask students, what do you guys know about Naviance? They're like, oh, that's that college research app. And I'm like, it is, but it's also the career exploration app too. And we always start out with a career and hope that guides us through to the college. Just to let you know, they don't have to access Naviance with us. They now have their entry. They can enter into it. It's mobile. They can look on their phone. If you're on vacation in the car, you're going to be able to use it. You can go in. You can play around with all of the different knowledge and information in there. And I hope that you find it as useful and helpful as we like to think it is. So I am now going to turn it over to Dave Reglio and Lisa Connery are going to be doing the question and answer part.
All right, thank you, Linda. Dave, you good? So if parents wouldn't mind raising their hand, we'll hand you the mic, and you can ask your question in the mic, okay?
Well, first of all, thank you. That was great. Naviance, clearly a lot of valuable tools, resources. My question to you is, it sounded as though certain aspects of that, like the personality characteristics of the child, are evaluated during a classroom type of setting, yet others, they're on their own. So I would think that the career development component that was just reviewed would be something that I'd like to see it done in the classroom setting with you guys there to be able to help them interpret those results, as opposed to just leaving it to the child to have to go in and do that on their own, which in my son's particular situation would be a challenge, getting him to take the time to do that. Is there some consideration for, building that into classroom time where they can do it as a group and you guys can help them in terms of making sure they're supportive in interpreting the results?
So we will be going back into the classroom again in April. Because they're sophomores, we do the assessment, and then they have MCAS coming up. So we will be going back in April, and at that time, we have another double lesson that we do with the students to help them interpret the do what you are, and understanding their personality type and how it ties to the career. all right? So there's an additional lesson. So first we have to go in, introduce them to Naviance. We talk about course selection. We actually have to have them do the assessment. And we know that if we don't provide them time to do the assessment during school, then the likelihood that we're going to get most of the kids to complete it is pretty slim. So first we have to get the assessment done, and then we go back in and go back over the interpretation of it all right? And then when the counselors start meeting individually with students and start talking about careers and majors and post-secondary planning, we keep coming back to this. So like when we go in to do the junior workshops, we come back to the Do What You Are and the career clusters. And we'll pull that up when we're talking with students, you know, and go back over these things.
We shouldn't be pushing them to get all this done now.
You don't necessarily have to push them. I would encourage them to continue to read and explore. We also have like a worksheet that kind of guides them through how to access all of the different information, important key components of everything that's on Naviance. So within the Do What You Are and the careers, we have certain key points that we have students going and looking at, identifying one potential career that they would like to investigate, and then what's the different information you can find out about that career, right? Because like Linda said, there was how many, Linda? 900 or whatever. There's so many career possibilities in there that we simply don't have enough time in the classroom to have kids go multiple times. So it's we come from the approach that if we teach them through one selection of a career or major, how to access the information, then they'll be able to do some of that independently. So we will be coming back in the classrooms in April and breaking down the personality type to help them to really understand how that ties to careers.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. It was really helpful. One thing I might have missed was, I'm assuming now our kids are in Naviance, so does that mean that both parents can have their own login?
Yes. And Becca, Andrea, you guys oversee Naviance. You're going to be sending out parent codes. So after this meeting, we will be sending out parent codes so that parents have access to Naviance as well, and they can see their students' results. If you have an older student, like you already have a Naviance account and you've accessed Naviance through your older student, please reach out to your student's guidance counselor, because what we'll do is we'll link your older student and younger student both to your account, so you won't have to have a new code. You can access your both students through Naviance. Okay, so if you have an older student, just reach out, let us know. We'll connect your younger student, and then we'll be sending out an email with parent codes.
And one follow-up to that is, there are other tools that are out there. You know, I took Myers-Briggs when I was a kid, but now they have other things like strengths finders, which kind of gives you, your 5. I think they break it out into like 40 different skill strengths, and it'll narrow down your top 5, and those I found have really helped for team building and for working with others, which is a thing that I think in today's working world, you have to, whether you're introverted or not, you're going to have to find a way to work with people. Are those kind of add-ons that are being considered for Naviance to kind of help, further shape their profile?
Not at this time, but it doesn't mean that we wouldn't be open to looking at things, that aren't associated with Naviance that would tie into it, So, I mean, we're always open to looking at it. And again, it also then becomes, the Do What You Are that they have in Naviance has been normed to the students, versus, just adults. So sometimes it's a matter of, age-wise, is it appropriate, and do we have a vehicle to be able to do an assessment like that, So I don't know. We're always open to it, but right now we don't have anything, in Naviance related to that. But we're open to looking at other options.
I was just going to show, when you get your email, it's going to give you an activation code. So what you're going to do is you're just going to go where it says, "Are you new here?" You're going to say, "I need to register." And the email you receive will have that registration code. You just enter that. But again, if you have an older sibling already in Naviance, let us know so we can just link you, and that way you don't have separate accounts. Okay.
So this class of sophomores is the first class, I think, to be graded in a slightly different way than the older classes, and that the GPA is different. And also they all had to take CP history as freshmen. So I'm just curious, when you go into Naviance, like, will it correct for that in some way? Because you won't necessarily be comparing yourselves on the same level, because the numbers are just automatically going to be different.
That is something that we're going to have to be working on, you know, with Naviance and with our previous GPAs. So what the parent is questioning is we have had a change in our grading scale, okay? And the reason why there was a change made to the grading scale was the previous grading scale, we're on a weighted GPA, like Andrea Hodgkin mentioned. And so previously, if you got, it was like on a 5.5. And if you got an A in an AP class, that was worth a 5.5, right? If you got an A in an honors class, it was a 5.0. If you got an A in a CP class, it was a 4.0. So it went from AP to honors, a 0.5 difference. But from honors to CP, it was a 1.0 difference, okay? So to equalize the difference between the different levels, a new GPA scale was created. So now it's if you get an A, you know, if you have the A plus in the honors class, it's a 5.0. Can you pull that up for us, Andrea, so people can see it? And then the honors, so we can see right here. So we have the new, an A plus in an AP is a 5.0, the honors is a 4.5, and the CP is a 4.0. So they took it and so that it's 0.5 between each level versus 0.5 and 1.0, okay? So when the class of 2022 is applying to colleges, we will incorporate information about the change in the GPA chart through our school profile, as well as outreach to our admissions reps, okay? So we'll be letting them know that there's a difference in the grading scale that's occurring for our students and the rationale behind it, okay? We also report the highest and the lowest GPA for the class, so they'll note that, you know, students can't possibly earn a certain, you know, GPA. And in regards to the unleveled U.S. history class, that's going to impact everybody in the same exact way, okay? That is also communicated through our school profile that this is the only option that students have, right? So is this unleveled history class. All right, so the admissions counselors will also know that there were no other level options available for students for that U.S. history class. And then the next step that we have to take and look at is what the parent's asking about is how are we then going to be able to do an admissions assessment through Naviance, because one of the tools that we will introduce you students to in junior year are our scattergrams. And our scattergrams track the admissions decisions, results for our students. So it's like their SAT scores, their GPA, and how they fared in the admissions process, okay? So of course, with a shift in the GPA scale, it's going to, you know, impact that data that is in Naviance. So we are going to have to kind of look at that and see what we can do, okay, to help minimize that impact so that students still have an accurate assessment of how they would fare in the admissions process for our students, okay? So there are steps that we'll have to take in our communication with the colleges to ensure that they're clear about why the changes were made and what impact they have, and we'll take care of that, you know, when the time comes. And the nice thing is that the reps for our area, you know, it's their responsibility to know our high school. All right, and so they'll be fully aware of this, all right? They're familiar with Algonquin. They're familiar with the caliber of students coming out of Algonquin, all right? So we think the combination of eliminating rank has provided our students with a lot more opportunities, right? As well as now creating more equality between the different level of courses, because at Algonquin's, a college prep level class is a true college prep level class, okay? So, you know, equalizing the difference between the levels will also be beneficial for our students, okay? So I hope that answers your question. So we have some legwork that we're going to need to do with the class of 2022, okay? And we're aware of it and talking about it, and we'll be looking at it, all right? But we'll be ready when it's time for them to head off, okay?
Considering when you're trying to decide between an AP level class and an honors class, considering that all the colleges kind of recalculate their own GPA, if all things were considered, the more AP classes are better than, you know, if you're just trying to decide whether it's an AP class or an honors class, and it's kind of equal. You're either going to be in an AP class and get a B, or an honors class and get an A. If you're really looking at that, are you better off taking the AP class, so the greater number of AP classes weighs more?
So yeah, I think that question it's depending on your student too, and the amount of workload your students be able to take on. So the college admissions are going to look at your students' overall GPA. They're going to see the overall transcript. So usually it's going to be like the rigor of classes is definitely a factor that colleges look into, and obviously the grades on the transcript are important to them. But if the student is debating between an honors class and an AP class, and they're balancing the rest of their course load, so if they're taking multiple honors and they have elected or athletics after school or part-time jobs, and their workload and their school life balance is something that they really have to consider. But colleges definitely consider the rigor of courses the students in as part of the admission standards, yes.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think it really depends on your student. You know, so it's not necessarily always better to have more AP classes. Okay, I think it's really important, and we've been encouraging students in the classroom to really think about where their interests lie and where their strengths lie, and then to challenge themselves appropriately, okay? So I think sometimes too much, you know, too many AP classes, too much rigor can be very overwhelming and impact the overall performance of a student, okay? So again, you know, if your student is, you know, very science-oriented, and, you know, they're saying, hey, I think I want to do pre-med, or I want to, you know, eventually go to medical school, and then you probably, and they've qualified for AP biology, you know, you probably want to lean towards that. But then maybe bring some balance in another area where, you know, they're saying, hey, you know what, I think I would prefer to do an honors English course. And that's okay. So it's really kind of talking about your student, your child, and what their strengths are, what their preferences are, what their interests are, and then balancing it accordingly. And you always have to be thinking about what are they doing outside of school. You know, so if they're working or if they're involved in athletics, that's a huge time commitment, you know. And so then if you just keep adding rigor to that, I mean, sleep is important as well. All right, so I do think that that's a huge component, you know, especially because as you head in, you know, when we're talking a lot about this in regards to, like, say, senior year, right? As they go from junior to senior year and continue to increase rigor, they're also going to have the added, you know, time constraints of the actual application process. So not only do they have their courses, but they're doing applications, and maybe they're working at that point, you know, and maybe they're involved in clubs and athletics, and eventually, you know, they really should be getting like 7 hours of sleep, hopefully a night, you know what I mean? So it's really all about your individual students, their interests, their preferences, and, you know, helping them to kind of create balance with what they're choosing, okay? So there's no perfect answer, all right?
So last year, and maybe for a few years, you've had a program where parents come in and they present to freshman and sophomore students on sort of their career path and, you know, what they do, and I think it's awesome. Keep doing it. Is that program available for juniors and seniors where that information might be more relevant than, let's say, a freshman and sophomore that aren't really, you know, maybe freshmen in particular aren't really thinking about what do they want to do or what college they want to go to, but, you know, more relevant for juniors per se, let's say. Is that available to the upperclassmen?
Yes. So you're speaking about our career day. So as a school, we are, you know, committed to having an annual career day. And some of you might have received emails, you know, requesting parents to come in and share their career pathway with our students. So if you're available, we welcome your support, you know, because it really is key to the success of the program. But the career day is for the entire school. And so how we are doing the career day is we do half of the departments one year and half of the other departments the next year. So it's a rotation. So like the science department would go every other year, and the math department would go every other year. And so, but it's open to all grade levels. So once we welcome parents into a particular content area, then there's people in all of the classrooms presenting to all of the students throughout the entire day, okay? So it's 9 to 12. So at any point, you know, students will have 4 career days before they leave Algonquin, which is great, you know? And so now we're kind of looking for ways to also maybe connect with our alumni and bring back some of our students who maybe are like, you know, 28, 29, 30 years old, kind of through college, settling a little bit, because we think that would be nice for the students to hear from them as well.
Just maybe a suggestion would be you could create a database of people in Northborough based on what their current career is, and for students that want to deep dive a little bit more, let's say they want to go into a medical career, they want to be a registered nurse or something like that, they can contact 3 or 4 people that do that every day.
When we send out the career day information, requests for speakers, part of that is also, there's a couple questions on there that ask, like, do you offer any opportunities for internships for our students? And are you also open to doing informational interviews? So there's different components in there where we try to gather information. We also send that out through our Corridor 9. So we are trying to kind of build that database, you know, with, you know, professionals who could come in and, you know, share their information with our students. So I agree. I think that's all very valuable and great ideas, and we're trying super hard to kind of get that moving forward because we think it's key to helping our students, you know, gather as much information as they can as they head off to college. So I think that's all great feedback, and we're trying really hard. So if you guys see these emails coming out through our Career Resource Center and through Naviance requesting support, please feel free to fill out that Google form, come in, share your experience, your pathway, because I think it's key to really helping our students, you know, understand that there is no straight path in life, right? And you can go in a lot of different directions, and sometimes it takes time to figure out who you are and what you're interested in, what you would like to do, you know, with your career and in life. So it's a great opportunity for kids to really hear that message and help to reduce their overall stress.
First of all, I would like to thank for all the valuable information that you guys provided. My only question about is, what is the information that college would have an access to other than the GPA from the school?
So what we provide to colleges, so part of the things we provide to colleges is the transcript. So the transcript have all 3+ years of grades, and then as quarter grades come out for senior year, we send follow-up transcripts with those quarter grades. They will also get a school profile that lists just the background on Algonquin, all the classes we offer, class size. We fill out things as counselors about our students, including with the school profile, letters of recommendation from counselors, teachers' letters of recommendation. That is all part of the application package that goes out from school materials. So initially it's that initial round of transcripts, it's follow-up with quarter grades. Anytime there's like a class change, the counselor reaches out to that college if needed to explain the class change array. But yeah, it's usually the grades, letters recommendation, school profile, and then various documents that the schools may request.
Just to follow up with the honors and the AP on the other spectrum, how do colleges look for if a child takes a study? My son plays football, and I really feel he needs a study during that time. But he's a little hesitant now because he said that doesn't mean anything for colleges. So what's your opinion on that, and is it just an individual thing?
I think it's perfectly fine to take a study if your student, you know, is recognizing that they need to bring some balance, you know, to their life. So football is a huge commitment in the fall, right? And a couple hours every day of practice, and can be very physically exhausting, you know? So if your student feels that a study hall will benefit them in the fall while they're engaged in football, then that is a decision they can make in the same way that they can choose to enroll in Art 1, okay? From an admissions standpoint, as long as your student is enrolled in the core content areas and challenging themselves appropriately, that's what really matters, okay? So I really think it's up to you and your student to make that decision for them personally, okay? But if they choose to take a study over, say, a nutrition class, you know, that might have a more positive impact on them in regards to providing some time during the day for them to be able to get their work done because they know that they have football practice after. Now, some students, you know, don't feel that they need a study, and, you know, so they choose not to, and they would rather engage in, you know, an elective course. It's all a personal choice, but it won't have a negative impact on them, you know, in regards to the admissions process. All right? Yeah. Now, if they have 3 of them, yeah, that's a problem, you know, but that usually doesn't happen until senior year. That's when we get our senioritis going on, and everyone and their brother wants to be a, you know, be a teacher assistant and have 3 studies. It's like, stop it, you know?
Study halls aren't reported on our transcript, and we don't send schedules out to the colleges either, so it's just going to list the classes that they've been enrolled in and then the final grades they receive. Obviously, when they get like their senior year schedule, they're going to count up all the classes the students involved with, but we don't have students list down study halls if they are currently enrolled in one.
Okay, great questions. All right, so thank you very much for coming, for joining us this morning. I hope everybody has a nice weekend. Please watch for emails coming out regarding course selection and the dates and deadlines for supporting your students in course selection, okay? All right, have a nice weekend. Thank you.